All right, we've got the recording going. Again, Kira Bennett is with us today from School Land Trust. And Kira, go ahead and take it away.
So thank you, Lisa. Thank you everyone for making time to be here today and for being willing to listen a little bit about the School Land Trust program. For those of you, I see a lot of familiar names in the room, and so it's really great to see you here, and then maybe some new names, at least for me too. And for those of you who don't know me, my name's Kira Bennett. I work with the School Children's Trust, who does administration, compliance, and training for the School Land Trust program. And I'm just here to share a little bit of information with you today, whether you are tenured with the program or whether you're newer as well. So as many of you know, I know you guys wear a lot of hats as business administrators or budget officers. And from last year, your responsibilities in that role have really expanded to include a critical role in charter schools' land trust programs. And you guys can all see my screen, right? Before I go? Yeah, okay, perfect. So this change for responsibilities, it was officially documented this year in Utah State Code for the School Land Trust program. What this has included is a couple of main responsibilities in relation to the program and the schools that participate it. Some of those responsibilities are to first complete an annual training. And I've got good news for you that you're attending today actually completes that requirement. So you get to knock that one off your list. Other ways that we offer training throughout the year on requirements we won't cover today are through newsletters. So if you have a login to our website, you're automatically in our contact list and you'll start receiving those newsletters starting in December. And then we also have some resources on the USBE website on our School Land Trust pages. Your second responsibility is to set deadlines for schools within the LEAs that you work for or work for or with. And those are for schools to submit plans and reports to you with consideration of what your due dates are, and for you to turn them into the USBE. And I'll go over a little bit of that more as we go along as well. The other responsibility is to review plans and reports for schools, and we'll dive deeper into that. And then also to manage and communicate school land trust budgets with schools and with the USBE. And by the end of today, I already mentioned that this will count as annual training for you. And I'm also hoping that we can all get those deadlines set in real time. And if you don't have a login to our website, at least know how to do that within the next couple of weeks. So, as a part of the annual training, it's really important to revisit why this program even exists and why it's so important. It's really a fascinating and unique funding source for schools. While many states, primarily in the Western United States, still have trust lands, Utah has a really special way of using them that is actually quite the envy of other states. We go to this conference every year where all of the states that still have existing trust lands get together, and Utah is always a hot topic on how we use it. So that's pretty neat. So we're going to kind of go back just briefly in time and kind of explore the roots of the program. Uh, so I guess I'd ask you guys to kind of picture this. It's the late 1800s. America's this brand new shiny experiment, and everyone's kind of trying to figure things out. And someone has this really brilliant idea, kind of like a light bulb moment, and they say, "Hey, you know what's a really good idea? Democracy." And they're thinking that democracy only works if you have educated voters. You don't want people voting on stuff that they don't understand. So how do you make sure that you have an educated populace? free schools. But how do you pay for free schools as a new nation with very little capital? You use what you do have a lot of, and at that time it was land. So that's kind of the basic gist of trust lands. The founding fathers, in all of their wisdom, decided to grant land to support public schools and other important institutions. And these lands were required to be held in trust, kind of like a college fund for the state to benefit those institutions, and the largest beneficiary being the public schools. Then we fast forward to Utah becoming a state in 1896, and Congress was like, "Welcome to the club, Utah. Here's your trust lands." And they granted us sections 2, 16, 32, and 36 within townships, which are 6 by 6 mile sections of the state. And that is pretty much the foundation of trust lands. One key thing that I should have pointed out on that slide is there's a lot of confusion about trust lands being public. There are about 3 million acres of Utah that are still trust lands, and some of them are publicly accessible, but none of them are actually owned publicly. They are owned by the school children of Utah State. So we've got all this land, but it's not just sitting there collecting dust. It really takes a whole team to make this school land trust thing work. And the way I like to think of it is kind of like a relay race with each agency passing the baton to the next. So the 4 state agencies that are involved in trust lands are listed on the screen, along with their role. Essentially, you have the Trust Lands Administration making money off the land, CITFO investing it like they're kind of like the Warren Buffetts of the world, of the trust world. And then you have advocacy office protecting it, and then us at the USBE who are helping people spend it for their intended use. And arguably, I would say we definitely have the best job out of all of those. Let's see. Um, so the permanent fund, which is all of the money that is made off of the land and gets invested by CITFO, is currently sitting at $3.4 billion. So it's quite a bit for a little bit of land investment. And the way it works is every year a portion of this money is distributed across the state. For the 24-25 school year, as you're aware, about 106.2 million went out, with about 12.5 million of that being for charters. For 2025 to 2026, you may have seen in the news that it was just announced that about 111.3 million is going out, and then an estimated 13.6 million of that is for charters. And I do want to emphasize that that is an estimate, as the projections aren't fully complete yet, but that'll give you a good idea of what all of your schools will be receiving this year. So at this point, this is kind of where you come in. We've talked about the history, the agencies, and how much money is in the fund. And so now we're going to kind of talk about how the School Land Trust Program actually works in the schools you work with, or you might even have kids in. The School Land Trust Program is essentially a vehicle for distributing those millions of dollars we just talked about. It's an annual injection of funds, and they are designed to specifically be used to boost academic achievement for students. For charters, every year, charter trust land councils form with a 2-parent or grandparent majority, and they get to decide how those funds are used. If they want to invest in new technology, they can go for it. If they want to provide extra support for struggling students, they absolutely can. It's really about empowering schools to meet their unique needs. With that great power comes great responsibility, and that is where you guys play a really crucial role with your interaction with the program now. Listed on the screen are the key program requirements that will really involve your expertise. So we have final reports. We all know that accurate and timely reporting is absolutely essential. We need to know how the funds were used, the impact that they had, and that everything is in compliance with regulations. And then for upcoming plans, we know looking ahead is just as important as looking back, and we need your help in reviewing plans for how future funds will be utilized. And then plan amendments, when things change, unexpected needs arise, or new opportunities emerge, that's where those come in. And so you guys are essentially interacting with the schools and these 3 different reports to be stewards of these trust resources. So we're gonna shift gears a little bit and specifically focus on these program requirements that involve you. I'm hoping to provide you some really clear timelines so that you can knock that second responsibility we talked about of setting deadlines for those reports for your schools. So first, I'm going to prepare you guys to hopefully bookmark your new favorite website. This is the School Land Trust Reporting website, and it's kind of your one-stop shop for everything related to the program requirements. It's where you'll review final reports, plans, and amendments. To access these features, you do need a login. Some of you may already have one from previous years. If so, that's awesome. For those of you that need to create a new login, I've included the website URL and the step-by-step instructions on how to request that. Essentially, you'll come to this first web page, you'll click on the request login, or excuse me, new account button, and you'll follow the prompts. And you'll just need to let us know which LEAs to associate your account with so we can make sure you have access to the correct information. If you work with more than one, you're just going to request the first LEA and then end up needing to let us know the other ones to attach to your account. Once you're logged in, or if you already have your login, one thing that I'll ask you to do is just double check that all the LEAs associated with your account are accurate for this year, if there's been any movement. And if anything needs to be updated, just reach out to our team and we are happy to help with that. When we're talking about the reporting website, I do want to go over some really quick terminology just to make sure we're speaking the same language. When I'm talking about school users, this is the general term for anyone from a school who interacts with the website to submit forms. And so this is typically going to be the charter director or principal or a designee of them. And essentially, if they're accessing the website on behalf of the school, they are the school user. The charter admin, this is you as the budget officer, business administrator, the person who reviews everything before it's submitted. And then USBE admin is referring to our team here at the USBE, the School Children's Trust, and we're the ones that manage the website, provide support, and perform those additional reviews. So taking a quick look at our website's navigation, once you've logged in and selected your LEA, you're going to see a screen with different options for accessing each school's requirements. You'll find sections for the final report, the upcoming plan, and plan amendments. And those are the ones that you'll want to worry about. The council form and principal assurance aren't something that you're going to need to go into. The one thing to pay close attention to is the status on each page, and I have a key at the bottom for later reference. It'll essentially tell you where things stand within the review process. And if a form status is in or awaiting LEA review, that means the form is in your court. So that's probably going to be the most important one for you to notice. We do hope that the website is pretty intuitive, and when it's not, let us know. We need the feedback, and we're constantly working in the background to make improvements to the website. If you ever encounter any issues or you need help navigating it, please just let us know, and we're happy to help. All right. For those of you who do have a login, I'm hoping that while I'm talking on these next couple slides, you might be willing to log into the website right now, and I'm going to show you how to set those due dates. So if you guys are interested in doing so, or if you want to come back and watch the recording later to do that, I'll leave that up to you. But if you are willing to do it, go ahead and start getting logged in right now. So what's pictured on here is kind of the command center of your access to our website once you've selected an LEA. From here, you can access everything that you need to manage this LEA's trust fund, school land trust funds. At the top, you're going to find LEA tools. This is where you can access the forms we just talked about, review submissions, and you can also download a copy of the School Land Trust financial records so that you can match it with your system of truth. We do consider your records to be what's accurate, and we always want to make sure that ours match what you have. Next, you'll see a list of authorized reviewers for your LEA. For the LEA, you're going to be listed here with charter admin next to your name. And below this is where you are going to be able to set the school deadlines for both the final report and the upcoming school plan. You might be wondering why these due dates are so important if you have communication with schools outside of this website. And essentially, it's about preventing a full-blown email apocalypse for principals' inboxes. And I say that with the utmost sincerity. Our website is getting to the point where it's getting pretty smart, and it likes to send out reminders to principals every few weeks leading up to a specific due date. And this is great. It keeps everyone on track. But if you leave last year's due date in the system, like you see on this screen, the system's going to think those reports are severely past due. And when something's severely past due, it sends an email and another email and another. And essentially, that poor principal is going to log in one morning and find dozens of overdue notices in their inbox. So if you can get those corrected before we get to those due dates, that is going to be of utmost importance. So if you're logged in, we're going to start talking about what you should set your due date to. Setting due dates isn't just about picking a date and hoping for the best. It requires a bit of planning and foresight depending on the form that you're setting it for. The goal is to give your schools ample time to complete their submissions while also ensuring that you have enough time to review it and possibly send it back before the final deadline. So the first due date we need to tackle is for the final report. This is the report where the schools kind of spill the beans on how School Land Trust was used for last year. So for this year, they're going to be filling out the report for 2023 to 2024. This report becomes available to them on January 15th, but you have up until March 1st to have it reviewed and submitted. There is something really important to know. You, as the business administrator, are the only one that reviews this report for the school. The school's governing board will get a copy of it after your review, but the responsibility of the review process ultimately falls on your shoulders for this report in specific. And the reason being is it's financial based. These reports are a pretty big deal. In our section, we use them as the foundation for compliance reviews, and then they've also been used for audits internally and externally. So the content that is in these is really crucial. So to do this right, you need to ensure that you have adequate time to review each report, potentially send it back for edits, and then re-review it before the March 1st deadline. And a good rule of thumb is to give yourself at least 2 weeks before March 1st, but it really depends on how many LEAs and schools you're juggling. So if you can think of maybe a midway of February, a date you want to set it and you're logged in, go ahead and click the calendar button and then select the date you want and click set due date. Okay. While you're doing that, I'm going to shift focus a little bit and talk about the second report you'll want to set a due date for, and that is called the upcoming plan. This is how schools plan to use School Land Trust funds for the upcoming school year. So this year they're planning for 2025 to 2026. The upcoming plan is available to principals after the final report is approved by you. But unlike the final report, this one has a few more approval hoops to jump through. The first thing that happens is the principal submits whatever the council decides they want to do with the funds. And then the school's governing board has to give it a thumbs up. Then after that, it comes to you for review. And finally, it comes to us for review before schools can receive their funds. The deadline for your review before it comes to us is May 1st. And just remember, you might need to send it back for revisions, and it could go through another round of reviews with the governing board before landing back on your desk. So you're going to want to consider the complexity of the plans that you've received in the past, the potential for back and forth with the schools or the boards, and then your overall workload, of course. And so with those factors in mind, if you want to set a the date prior to May 1st in the website, you can go ahead and do that now. A good rule of thumb for that one is also 2 or 3 weeks ahead of the deadline, and you can do it absolutely sooner than that. You just have to get it to us before May 1st in order for those schools and LEAs to receive their funding in July. May 1st, the entire state submits, and our massive team of 3 reads all plans for the state. So there's about 1,000 plans we read between the 3 of us. And so it takes us May and June to get through those. All right. So those are the 2 due dates that you need to set in the system. And if you've done them, you've got 2 of your 4 responsibilities crossed off of your list. There's one more piece of the puzzle that can kind of pop up at any time, but these are optional. So you may or may not encounter these with the schools. So they are plan amendments, and a plan amendment is essentially a change to a school's current plan, the one that they're implementing. So for this year, it's whatever they're doing with the school land trust funds for 2024 to 2025. There's a couple of reasons a school might need to submit an amendment. One is for carryover mitigation. This is about preventing funds from piling up unused. It is not allowable for this program for a school to carry over more than 10% of what they were distributed. And the reason for that is because these are trust funds, and trust money has to go to the people that it's intended to go to, which for the distribution year is this year's students. And so that's the reason for that it's not allowed. If they realize that they might have some leftover funds, they can submit an amendment to reallocate those resources within the year so that they prevent going on the list of those that carried over more than 10%. Another reason a school might submit a plan amendment is because circumstances change, the council's priorities shift, or new opportunities for purchasing things that support their students' academic success arise. And councils can just submit an amendment at any time to make adjustments to their plan. It is important to know that plan amendments go through the same approval process as the new plan. And so that means it needs the green light from the governing board, you, and finally us at the School Children's Trust. And the schools can't use the funds in the amended way until all those approvals are in place. I would like to point out we've made an improvement to the amendment process this year. The amendment form is going to be different than what you saw last year. It's actually now a copy of the original plan that the principal can change rather than just going and trying to capture the changes within essentially what used to be a text box. We have received some feedback on it, and sometimes people want to compare the old plan with the amended version side by side, and this is possible. The way that I accomplish this is I just open up the website in 2 different browsers. So I just use like Chrome and Edge, and you'll open up the current plan in one browser and the amendment in the other, and this will allow you to easily spot the differences between the plans and ensure that the changes are appropriate and aligned with the program's goals. But you do not have to pull up the old plan if you have communication from the principal about what's changed. It can just be helpful for your own review if it's your preference. Okay, hopefully you guys are all finished setting those due dates, and if not, if you can get that done in the next couple weeks to avoid the massive amount of emails that'll come out starting in January, I'm sure your principals will appreciate that. Now I'm going to kind of shift focus one more time and talk about the actual review of plans and reports. And this is where the attention to detail is really, really going to shine. I know reviews can be kind of a daunting process, but first you need to know just how important they are and how grateful we are for you guys taking on this additional responsibility. I do compliance for the program, and I cannot tell you the drastic improvement that I've seen in reporting since you all took that on last year. So what you're doing is working, and it's valuable, and it's protecting this trust. And so I thank you guys for being fiduciaries for that. When you're reviewing, it's really important to know your approval of a plan or amendment, it carries a lot of weight. Essentially, it is a stamp of approval that assures that the plan meets a couple of things. So for original plans or amendments, what a review approval means is it means that the plan contains data-driven evidence-based strategies to improve student outcomes that align with the school's academic goals. It means that the plan supports the teacher and student success plan. It means that the plan meets all of the nitty-gritty requirements of statute and rule. And it also means that the plan safeguards confidential student information, and essentially that it's just not in there. And for plans, that might seem like a lot, but remember that those are reviewed by the school's governing boards first. So just establishing a really good working relationship with them, their review should cover the most of those things, and yours should be more financially focused at that point. You're still a safety net for these items, but by time that review gets to you, it should be a pretty polished plan. When it comes to final reports, remember you're the only one reviewing these ones and they are very financially focused. So you are assuring that the report clearly explains how the plan was implemented. So were funds spent the way that they were initially approved to be spent? And additionally, that the plan meets the confidentiality requirements, that there's no identifying student information within them. And then just remember that this document of final reports plays a really vital role in compliance monitoring audit processes. So your attention to detail here is really, really appreciated. Okay, so for plans and amendments, you're probably thinking, Kira, are we going to dissect every single detail of a plan amendment and review right now? And the answer is no, but I am going to set you up for success. We're going to be sending out some more focused training materials to accomplish that. In the next few months, you'll get the first compliance newsletter from me in December, and then our our training specialist, Marcus Chen, who just joined us this year, is going to be sending out some training videos with some additional resources on plan reviews. So in the meantime, if you choose to adopt these slides, I do have a couple of resources listed for you. There's a guide to reviewing plans and amendments, and it'll walk you through key components of a plan. It'll highlight the compliance criteria so that you don't have to go read all of the law for school land trust, and I would not suggest it unless you want a good night's sleep. And it also will provide you some tips for conducting a review. And then I've included one more resource, which is allowable and unallowable use of school land trust funds. It's probably one of our most common questions. And so hopefully that'll provide you a guideline for some of the trickier areas. And if you ever have one-offs that you're reviewing and you're like, I don't know if this is okay for the program or not, please let us know. We'd rather proactively say yes or no, or help you or the schools kind of fit it into their plan and then the way they want before you get to a final report. So for final reports, I've also included a couple of resources for you. There's a similar guide to the plans, but that have to do with final reports. And this will walk you through the key sections, highlight what to look for, and then offer some tips for conducting a thorough review. And again, the allowable and unallowable use of SLT funds, because you do want to look for those on the front and back end of plan receiving and receiving and reviewing. One key to a final report is I would highly recommend not solely relying on the information within the report itself. Our final reports receive a API from UPEFS and eventually from the new system that's going in. But what it does is it just gives an overall summary of how money was spent. I would really, really encourage you or ask your charter principals and directors to pull up the expenditure details that you have for how they spent funds and compare it with their approved plan in the final report. This is where you're can't catch any discrepancies, inconsistencies, potential red flags. And this would be better off at the beginning of the process, but if you're doing it during the final report, that's okay too. You are going to want to look for things like, did they allocate funds for technology, but did they actually spend them on field trips? Did they budget for professional development, but end up buying furniture, which is an unallowable expense? And the job is to really make sure that these inconsistencies are caught and reported within that final report. The way in which compliance reviews are conducted is that is exactly what happens. We pull up the final report, we get an expenditure detail from you, and I go through and I line up and I say, can I easily identify that this purchase that happened was in the original plan? And if you're not able to identify that, I definitely am not able to identify that. And if I can't, most importantly, the public's not. And this program it has a very important public component to it. And so that transparency is absolutely critical. The other thing for final reports is if you find any inaccuracies in the report, don't hesitate to send them back to the principals for edits, for better explanations. It's really crucial that these final reports accurately reflect how the funds were used. And that third reminder, this document's used for the compliance monitoring and audit, so accuracy is absolutely paramount. So we've talked a little bit about reviewing plans, scrutinizing reports, ensuring compliance, but one more crucial piece to your responsibilities is that ongoing management of and communication of school land trust budgets. And I'm sure that this is already a habit for you, so this is really just coming as a reminder. But we really rely on you to make sure that these funds are tracked accurately and that they're communicated effectively. There's two essential ingredients for successful school land trust management, and those are communication and accounting. And they just really go together like peanut butter and jelly, right? You can't have one without the other. So for communication, this is with both schools and with us at the USBE. We're really hoping that you have frequent check-ins with your schools. Communicate with them about their real-time budgets, let them know where they stand, how much they've spent, any potential red flags. One thing that I've seen used really, really successfully coming out of a couple of LEAs is they actually have a pre-approval process that they've worked out with their business administrators for their school land trust programs. And so for one district I just visited, what they ended up doing is they have a electronic form that they created to submit any expenses to their business administrator for program purchases. And it actually has on there what was the goal this was housed under and what's the action step and verbiage of the expenditure that you plan this under. And if they're unable to answer that, they have this preventative way of knowing that they shouldn't spend school land trust funds on it. And it's worked really phenomenally from them. They had a compliance review and it was the only one that's come back 100% clean. So it is that's a really good proactive kind of communication process that you can have with your schools. The other one is talking to them about excessive carryover. And I already defined that is when they have 10% of their distribution left over at the end of the year. And this is a huge no-no for the program. So keeping schools informed and just communicating periodically, whether that's monthly when they're having charter trust land council meetings or whether that's quarterly, whatever works for you, just kinds of a way to strategize to avoid that situation. For accounting, there are a couple of reminders that I'd like to go over too. During final reports, during your final report reviews that are coming up, please make sure that the UPEFS data that transferred over is accurate. Again, we use an API to grab that information, and sometimes it works great, and sometimes there's things missing. We just need to make sure those numbers match up, and if there's any discrepancies, just reach out to us, and we'll walk you through on how to get it corrected. The next one is the expenditure scrutiny, which we kind of just went over. Just make sure that every purchase was planned and approved and aligns with the program's guidelines. If it meets those criteria, they are good to go. If it doesn't, maybe you have that pre-approval process that's in place. Just don't let school land trust funds be used to cover it. It's really better to catch those preemptively than by time you get to the final report. The next item is a reminder that school land trust funds are restricted funds. They have to be used for a specific purpose, and they require detailed line by line accounting. And this is especially important if you have to back out anything, is keeping those records really meticulous. So say you accidentally charge a table and like a furniture, a table purchase and a building repair to the school land trust account. Don't just do a summary reversal of that total for what the amount was. Reverse each item. So we'd see the charge for the table, and then we'd see the table, the back out charge for the table. We'd see the building repair, and then we'd see that reversed, so that when those reviews happen, there's a really clear indication of how the money was or was not used. And then the last reminder is that school land trust funds cannot be shared between charter school locations. Each school has its own budget, so just make sure to keep those finances separate. And I do think that they put a new feature into UPEFs that I'm hoping will carry over to the new system, where it actually won't allow you to accidentally code it to the LEA or move funds around between schools. All right, before we wrap up, I'm going to help you take a quick peek into the future. Here is the announcement on next year's projections. So if you will mark your calendars for January of 2025, that's when we'll officially announce the projected school land trust distributions at the school level, from what's coming for that 111 million for the 2025-2026 school year. Reminder that the projections are based on the audited school enrollment counts from October of 2024. I know some of the charter locations this year were improved for some enrollment expansions, which is really awesome. Those won't be reflected until the FY27 funding. And then by law, school land trust funds are subject to change up until March 1st. And I know that that can be a little bit frustrating to get a number in January and then have to reload those budgets in March. Unfortunately, every time new charters join in, they get the option to choose between the base amount or the enrollment amount, depending on what their enrollment cap was when they were authorized. And so they just have that much time to kind of get the things together, and change to one changes all. We do try and get them pretty close, so they shouldn't change drastically, but just know and communicate with your principals that between January to March 1st, the number that they have to work with is a little bit of an estimate, albeit a close one. Let's see here. Before I finish, in this slide, we're not going to go over these. I'm just going to show you where they are. I do have some additional resources linked. So from slides 24 to 30, you're going to find another list of allowable use of school land trust funds. For this one, I have the main categories that the schools can spend on, along with some of the subcategory descriptions. Note that there is an other school land trust funds. There's in law, they actually don't have a list of these are things you can spend on, which is a little bit weird, but it's because the definition for what it can be used for is anything that is evidence-based, data-driven to have a direct impact on student academic success. And so it kind of leaves it up to the LEAs to determine where that is. So these are the things we most commonly see it spent on, but there are some additional. And then the next slide has an unallowable use of school land trust funds. If you ever have any questions about this one or can't decide with a school, does this fall under allowable or unallowable, reach out to us and we're happy to help. The only thing I'd point out on this one is to notice there is a new one this year. Storage of personal student property is not allowed. So as you're reviewing what schools are going to spend money on, if you see things like the cell phone holders that they want to purchase, starting this year, those are no longer allowable. The next couple slides have a little bit of a deeper dive on those plan components so that you know what to look for. Those are also located in those guides that I have attached, and then some additional information on determining if an amendment is necessary when talking with the principals. The last little bit of resources are instructions on entering expenditures into the upcoming plan. One of the most common reasons that we'll send back a plan after your review is if it's missing expenditures for any goals. It's something we're working on our website and is just a commonly missed component. So this is instructions that you can see to assist principals, or you can forward on to the principals to let them know what they're missing and how to fix it. And then we also have some school pages on the USBE website that you can access, and they have a whole wealth of resources. I also mentioned that Marcus Chen joined us this year, our training specialist. He's really phenomenal, a lot more interesting to listen to than I am, I promise. And so if you guys want some really good one-on-one training, or he has an absolute passion for coming out and seeing what schools and LAs are doing. So if you want to let the schools that you work with know, or if you're housed out of a school, have a visit from him. He really enjoys seeing the unique things that are being done for our program and just in general. And so he or any of us would really love to come out. If you need to get a hold of us, our group email is the best way to do it. It's schoolandtrust@schools.utah.gov. This hits all three of our email boxes at once, so you'll get the quickest reply. Otherwise, you are free to call us or email us directly as well. And that is all that I have for you guys today. I just want to extend my thanks first for Lisa for inviting me to be here today, and for you guys for taking the time again to hear about our program. We're really, really passionate about it, and we cannot thank you enough for the work that you do, and the help and communication that our team has gotten from you guys has been so invaluable. And so just know that you're all appreciated. And if you have any questions for me, I'm happy to answer those now. Does anyone have any questions? Doesn't sound like it. Okay, well, if you think of anything, you know how to contact us, and that's all I've got. So thank you, Lisa.
Of course, thank you so much, Kira, for being here with us today. All right, so just a few things. We are not going to have a meeting in December just because it's a busy time of year, and we have enough to do, so we're just going to forego that. And I'm working on January. I have a couple of ideas, so I'm not sure exactly what we're going to talk about in January, but it'll be something good. And with that, thank you guys so much for being here again today. Like I said, we did record it, and Kira is going to be sharing her resources. So you'll have all those links available to you, and I will send out the link for the recording as well as Kira's information together as soon as those are available. Thanks again. Have a wonderful rest of your month, and we'll see you again in January. Thanks, everybody.